Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mind in Language, the podcast where I explore the cognitive machinery behind the human communication. I'm your host, Arya Rasulipur, and today we are taking a deep, extended journey into one of the most influential theories in modern linguistic and cognitive science, conceptual metaphor theory, often abbreviated as CMT. This episode is designed as a full lecture style exploration, the kind of deep dive you might hear in a graduate seminar or a long form academic podcast. We will unpack the foundation of the historical theory, trace its development, and explore its cognitive and cultural implication, and examine how it interacts with related frameworks like image schemas and conceptual blending. We will also look cross-linguistic evidences, especially from the Persian language and English one, drawing on studies, emotional metaphors and primary metaphors, and embodied cognition. If you are studying cognitive linguistics, preparing a dissertation, or simply fascinated by how the mind works, this episode is particularly for you. Let's begin. To understand conceptual metaphor theory, initially and primarily, firstly, we need to go back 1980 when George Lakoff and Mark Johnson published Metaphor We Live By. The book fundamentally changed how scholars think about metaphor in fact. Before Lakoff and Johnson, metaphor we widely treated as linguistic ornament, a poetic device used for creativity and rhetorical flourish. It was something added to language, not something essentially required it. Lakoff and Johnson flipped this view on its head. They argue metaphor is not primarily a feature of language. Metaphor is a feature of thought, indeed. This was a radical claim. It means that metaphors are not just ways of speaking, they are ways of understanding. They structure how we conceptualize abstract domains like time, emotions, morality, and social relationships. Let's take a few examples. Argument is a war. You attack a point. You defend your position. You win or lose. You shoot down an idea. All of these examples are the metaphor, and these metaphors are not poetic. They are conceptual. It's a structure how English speakers think about disagreements. Or in the other series of examples about time is money. You spend your time or either you waste your time. You can save your time or you invest your time. It's up to you. Did you see? These metaphors are shaping how we treat time as resources for English speakers. And in the other example, love is a journey. Conceptualized love as a journey. The relationship is a crossroads. We are going in different directions. We hit the dead end or we hit the road. These metaphors are not optionals. They are cognitive scaffolding thoughts which we understand abstract experiences. Lakoff and Johnson incite what was the metaphor systematically. It forms network of related expressions that reveal and uncover underlying conceptual mappings. This insight launched an entire field, cognitive linguistics. In the other part, let's break down the architecture of conceptual metaphors. A source domain is a concrete, familiar experience, like movement, like heat, height, or physical objects. A target domain is an abstract area, like time, emotion, thoughts, or social relationships. A mapping is a asymmetric, systematic projection of a structure from the source to the target. Okay? A mapping is a systematic way. For example, In love is a journey example, the source domain is a physical travel. Target domain is romantic relationships. And the mapping includes travelers, lovers, obstacles, relationship problems and issues, destinations, shared and common goals, something like this. But another researcher, which was Zoltan Kovacs, one of the leading scholars in metaphors studies, emphasizes that these mappings are not arbitrary. They are grounded in embodied experiences, the physical sensory life of the human body. This is a vivid metaphor or all cross-linguistically widespread. Human bodies are similar across cultures, so many metaphors arise from shared experiences. But we should keep that point in our mind that this is a crucial. Cultures elaborate metaphors differently. For example, we will explore this later when we compare English conceptual metaphors theories and Persian conceptual metaphors theories in juxtapositions. One of the most important contributions of cognitive linguistics is that idea, which is embodied cognition, or the notion that a structure, the mind of shaped a structure of the body. Lakoff, Johnson, Kovacs, and Evans, all as a researchers, emphasize that metaphors arise from correlationship and correlations in experiences. For example, when a liquid rises, there is a more of it, so more is up. When we feel powerful, we stand tall, so power is up again. When you feel sad, you slump. Sadness is down. When you are angry, or body temperature rise, so therefore, consequently, anger is hit. Yeah, of course. These correlations are not learned through languages. They are learned through living in a human body. This leads up one of the most important concepts of metaphor theory, primary metaphor in comparison to secondary metaphors. But what are the differences between primary metaphors and secondary metaphors? Primary metaphors are natural, originated throughout our daily life and society, but secondary metaphors are consequence of integration primary metaphors in together, and they generated by primary metaphors, like primary epic and secondary epic asymmetric way. Primary metaphors were introduced by Grady and further developed by Lakoff and Johnson and Kovacs. A primary metaphor, as I mentioned before, is a simple, basic mapping that arises from early repeated correlations in our experiences. For example, affection is warmth. Babies are held by warm caregivers. Important is big. Large objects are harder to ignore. Knowing is seeing. Vision provides reliable information. Intimacy is closeness. So, physical closeness correlates with emotional closeness. These metaphors are universal because the experiences that motivate them are universal, in the other words. So, we should notice another less known researcher, but his work is as a milestone for me because he deep delved into the Persian conceptual metaphors. Tawakkoli in 2023 work, a study on Persian primary metaphors confirmed this. Persian speakers develop the same basic primary metaphors as English speakers, though they elaborate them differently. Primary metaphors combine to form complex metaphors. For example, the metaphors theories are building is built from and from. A structure is sustainability. A structure is stability. Complexity is multiplicity. Abstraction is height. Knowledge is structure. All of these combinations create rich conceptual system for us. And To understand and recognize how metaphor work, you need to expand and understand image schemas. Vivian Evans and other cognitive linguist researchers describe image schemas as recurring patterns of bodily experiences that structures or thoughts. They are not image, they are abstract patterns indeed. Common schemas include container, which is something inside it or outside of it, and source, path, goal for movement actions, up and down, and balance, center, periphery, force, link, a cycle. These structures, both literal and metaphorical thoughts. For example, container in trouble, out of danger. Okay, we conceptualize danger is a container and somebody is out of it. We conceptualize trouble as a container and somebody inside it. In love as a container, in love, example. Love is a container and somebody inside it, fell inside it. Out of ideas, out of ideas. Ideas are container and we are outside of it as an observer, for example. And in another example, source, path, goal, as I mentioned before, I can deliver some example. Moving forward, okay. Getting stuck, reaching a conclusion, okay. We can imagine hypothetically a conclusion is forward and we should move to reach it. We should reach to our destination, which is conclusion. And another example, as image schemas are up and down. Spirits are high. Morale is low. Image schema provides the cognitive skeleton on which metaphors are built. Now let's turn to cross-linguistic evidences. Shared Universal by Hayatis and his colleagues in 2012 show that English and Persian share many emotional metaphors. Anger is heat, love is fire. Fear is coldness, happiness is up. These universal arise to shared and common but embodied experiences in both English and Persian language and cultural elaboration, but cultures elaborate metaphor differently. For example, Iranian and Persian examples and Persian conceptual metaphors use heart as center of emotions, and it's very evident in most of the classic literature masterpieces of Iran, like Hafiz, Sa'di, Rumi, any type of poems and poets and proses in Persian classic literature. And liver as site of courage, and eye as a site of destiny or fate. For example, in Persian we say, you don't have such a liver, or you are not as brave as you should be, or you have eye on somebody, or it means it's your eye, it's up to your eyes. That means it's your destiny, it's your fate. And mind of for cognition. These are English uses. And heart is for emotion, either for English speakers, but gut for intuition. These are differences evidently for both languages. For example, you can consider gut is existed as source of conceptual metaphor in English language, but there isn't any tinge of evidence for it in Persian language. And Tavakkoli's study showed that Persian primary metaphors are grounded in same embodied experiences as English ones, but culturally imagery shape how they are expressed. It makes sense because both English language and Persian language are originated from same root of language diagrammatic trees based on traditional historical linguistic, which we call that group of languages a family of Indo-European languages. So it makes sense to it be much more closer to Persian and English, be close to each other in conceptual metaphors, rather than other languages like Chinese or Japanese. Or in the other word, we can consider on the other hand that our bodies are similar to each other. So I have same body as an Englishman, an American, and Brazilian or Japanese, anybody. So based on this embodiment, metaphors should be similarly but culturally different, vary in usage. This demonstrates Covey's principle of universal motivation and cultural variations. And Lakoff and Johnson also emphasizes, as well as the metaphor from the systems, not isolated mapping. For example, the metaphors, life is journey, interact with the purpose or destination, life plan is a route, difficulties are obstacles, and achievement are landmarks. Okay? These systems create coherence across the language and thoughts. Evans notes that systems are grounded in image schemas, especially in the south path goal schema. This is why metaphors feel natural. They reflect the structure of embodied experiences. Conceptual metaphor theory explains systematic metaphors, but meaning the more creative ones. This is where conceptual blending theory comes involved by Turner's ideas and researchers' minds approaches. Blending involves two input spaces and a generic space. A blended space with emergent structure. For example, this surgeon is a butcher. The blend create a meaning, incompetence, not found in either input alone. Blends explains humor, counterfactual, poetry, scientific creativity, and novel metaphors. Complex resources, and something like this. The Turners argue that and claim fundamental cognitive operation is the engine of imagination in his view. For the conclusion, let's go to recap all of things that I mentioned in this podcast episode. Metaphor is conceptual, not linguistic one. It is structured how we think, not as a figure of language that shape and design language, speech. Metaphor arises from every embodied experiences or bodies, shape, or minds in the other world. And primary metaphors come from the foundation, but the secondary not. They are integrated by other metaphors and then generate secondary ones. They come early correlation experience. Image schemas provide a structure. They are cognitive scaffolding of meaning, and also cultures elaborate metaphors variously. Persian and English are shared and common in universal, but completely vary in expressions in juxtaposition. Blending expands metaphors into creativity. It explains how new meaning emerge and generated. Conceptual metaphor theory, or CMT again, reveals something profound about human thought is imaginative, embodied and structured by pattern rarely noticed by. And understanding these patterns help us to understand ourselves, how we reason, how we feel, how we communicate, and how we make sense of the world, and how we perceive the world and conceptualize the world in our minds and daily speeches. Thank you for joining me in this extended exploration episode of podcast. Stay curious and farewell. If you enjoyed this episode, please like this video, subscribe my channel, and put the notification, ring the bell for the further video I will upload it. Until the next time, see you, farewell, goodbye, and good luck, and have a nice time. Bye.